At Dickensheath Primary School in Solihull, Deputy Head Jackie Nichols has been carrying out an Assessing Pupil Progress case study. In this 4-part series, we'll find out just how APP works as we follow Jackie getting to grips with his new forensic approach to assessment.
So that I can really drill down and put the right interventions in place to help that child move on in their learning and understanding. And I think without APP, you're scrabbling around in the dark a little bit.
Her challenge is to gather evidence and diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of 6 benchmark pupils.
Okay, so what does congruent mean?
Her evidence will then be placed before an independent moderation panel who'll assess Jackie's judgment.
Well, if all the sides are the same and all the angles are the same, then what shape must it be?
So far, Jackie's found out that there are gaps in her pupils' maths vocabulary. This week, she's tuning into her pupils' love of music and has created a lesson that she hopes will reinforce their understanding of those shaky terms.
Congruence, you are break 1, parallels, break.
She's being mentored through the process by 2 APP experts. Jackie's going to find out just how much her pupils are retaining from her lessons.
Do you know anything about trapezium?
And we'll be getting tips and ideas from teachers around the country who've already tried APP.
I've sometimes made assumptions that they were low in the level when in fact they were secure in the level, and it's only when looking at the evidence that I've really been able to realise that and understand that.
I think that you need a range of evidence, but I only feel secure that they know something if I can see that they can apply it.
And so much of what children can do and understand is not about what's on the paper, it's about what they talk about.
Right, year 5, day 2. Now, yesterday we started to think about some mathematical vocabulary. Today we've come into the music room to do a little bit more with our music, and we're going to use it to help us think about 3 key words from yesterday. Molly's mentioned one of them, perpendicular. There was another one beginning with P, and it talks about lines never meeting. Samuel. Parallel lines. So we're going to have a group of children being perpendicular, a group of children being parallel, and the last one is a word that means same size and same shape. Have a little think. A word that means same size and same shape. Eleanor.
Is it, I don't know how to pronounce it, but is it congruent or something?
Good girl, it is, and you did pronounce it well. It's congruent. Now, I wonder how on earth we're going to do that with our instruments. Well, I'm going to tell you. In planning for the second lesson, I realised that where I had thought that we were secure and solid in their knowledge of 2D shapes, actually we were still working below age-related targets for some of the children. What I was finding was that the higher level words such as perpendicular, congruent and parallel, and being able to justify and talk about those shapes was shaky. And I needed to find a way to actually make sure that I hadn't missed anything.
I've heard of congruent, but I didn't actually know what it means. Same with perpendicular. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what she meant by 2 lines meeting to make a right angle. I thought she meant like a diagonal and a horizontal. I didn't understand.
Before I didn't really know about congruent, and then she showed us on this picture 2 circles which weren't the same colour, but they were the same shape and size, and I realised that congruent meant same shape and size. Sometimes I don't understand like how you see different triangles, so like right angle triangles or isosceles.
Well, I'm not that good on my shapes really, but I still find them quite easy, but I'd say I prefer numbers.
Jackie's referring to the shape and sounds of instruments to reinforce the children's knowledge of key maths terms.
So you are, as a team, the perpendiculars. We've got Mr. Perpendicular with his friend are going to play a vertical line in terms of music that interrupts or actually plays in the rest part of our tune. and I'll show you that in a minute. So you are, as a team, the perpendiculars. So hands up the perpendiculars. We've got 2 over here, and we've got the rest of you there. Super duper. In the session where I used music, I found that for some children it really gave them an opportunity to work within their learning style. In particular, I've picked up on Olivia, who is very much a doer. She's a kinesthetic learner, she's a visual learner too. And the idea of perpendicular was something that I've seen her demonstrate in her body language. And she's picked up on lots of the shapes and symbols in the mathematics. What do you notice about those instruments?
They don't meet, so it doesn't matter because they're not exactly the same size. It wouldn't matter because they're still parallel.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I really understood it when I was first when Miss Nichols introduced it to us, what are you talking about? But now, near the end of the lesson, I was like, okay, I get it now.
They can be different lengths so long as they are always equally distanced apart, so equidistant, as long as they never meet.
We had these instruments and they would represent a isosceles triangle and a right angle and congruent shapes, and I really enjoyed doing that.
Right, so we've got our perpendiculars with the melody line being played by our melodic xylophones, coming in with our vertical on our drums over here. Right, congruence. You pick up your instruments, please. And all I want you to do, first of all, is to play out our rhythm, okay? So if I say break 1, we'll go break 2. Most children will love the opportunity to perform. They love to get their hands on musical instruments and create music and have that sense of unison together. And when you get that sound, that's something that kind of gives you a bit of a tingle. It does me anyway. Are we ready? Let's try. Shh. Congruence, you are break 1. Parallels, break. Perpendiculars, break 3. Are you ready? This is a happening. Shh, performance level. You ready? Break 1. Break 2. Break 3. But it was also an opportunity to teach the same things in a different context, a context that would allow some children to maybe clarify and consolidate what they'd done the day before, and for other children, an opportunity to use and apply what they'd done if they were a little bit further along the way. You ready? You got an ear and
I think now I know what they mean. So if anybody came up to me and I had to explain it to them, I'd know what to say to them. And so, yeah, the music did help me understand my parallel and congruent and everything.
Before we hear from Jackie's mentors, how have other teachers found APP?
Sometimes they can do something, but you've not actually given them an opportunity to show that to you. So really it's about thinking, okay, what do I need to do? What opportunity do I need to give that child in order for them to show me that they can do that? And that could be through a game situation. I like to use a lot of maths games.
Outside the classroom, we've tried to do things that have I suppose a real life purpose. So we've had things like we've had a toy sale and the children had to bring in a toy. They had to price up their toy and then decide that they were going to say there was a certain percentage off, and some children chose 20%, some children would choose 3.5% off, and then they had to go and reprice everything.
You find out where the children are and are able to know what to give them next much more rapidly and regularly by focusing down on them in this way.
Jackie's APP mentors, Louise and Donna, have been keeping an eye on proceedings.
I think it was a really nice way to show the children a different way of looking at those terms they've been looking at in their maths lesson. And I think for some of those children it suddenly made sense to them what parallel lines were.
And you suddenly saw little sparks come up from obviously what they'd learnt in the lesson and then seeing it in a completely different context.
That's as easy as it is, so that's our congruence.
I mean, it certainly wasn't a situation where it was appropriate for her to take a step back and start making notes, and you have to balance that, don't you, with carrying on with the activity for the children. But she will need to try and remember certain key things for key children and possibly make a note of that after the lesson and help feed that into the next lesson.
My colleague Donna Wright has a similar role to myself. She's a primary maths consultant and she's going to be talking to the children after the lesson to see how they feel they got on, and that's quite a nice insight for the teacher.
Donna's going to gauge what level she thinks the benchmark pupils are at to see if it matches Jackie's level judgment.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your lesson that you did with Mrs Nichols?
We're learning about parallel lines.
Parallel lines? Okay, can you tell me a bit more about parallel lines?
Parallel lines are when two lines are like the same distance between each other. And
so could you spot any parallel lines in the room?
The sticks over there.
Okay, there's sticks in the corner, are they, that are parallel? Okay, how do you know they're parallel?
Because they're going straight and they're not like meeting each other.
Okay, I have a shape here, and what we're going to do is we're going to play a game of convince me that you know something particular about this shape. It might be something to do with the angles of it, it might be something to do with the sides.
That one's 90 degrees.
How do you know it's 90 degrees?
Because it's going like this.
Is there a way that we could check out that that was 90 degrees? Anybody know what this is?
something like a projector, but not the same really.
Something like that.
It begins with an S.
It does. It's a set square. Okay, Jackie was asked to identify 6 children, 2 that were working from a lower level, 2 working from a middle level, and 2 working from a higher level. And those children could then act as benchmarks for the other children within their group. What we're finding, or what I'm seeing through some of the lessons that I've observed with Jackie, and particularly through the discussions that I've had with those children, is that we probably have 2 children working at a lower level and 4 children working within the middle level. Luke and Jake, what can you tell me that we haven't already said about the shape?
It's an irregular heptagon because it's not in the shape of a normal one. It's a bit of a parallel line there and there.
Okay, a bit of a parallel line.
Yeah, because it's sort of, well it is, but it stops. So there's like a small one.
Okay, so which lines are parallel to each other?
Those 2 and those 2.
How do you know?
Because the
What I'm seeing is that some of those building blocks that they require within that middle level aren't secure, so they won't be ready to move on to the higher level. They are actually looking at some of those terms, but they won't be able to secure those terms in the higher level until some of the concepts such as the 2D shapes, the understanding of the word congruence, the naming of the shapes such as trapezium, once those are in place and are secure, then they would be ready to move on to some of the concepts within the higher level.
Next time on APP How Does It Work, we found out how a real maths lesson outside the classroom can inspire leaps in the children's maths learning.
Now Eleanor seems to think that that might be a right angle there. How are we going to absolutely test and see if it is?
Jackie gets Donna's report.
He, without any hesitation, drew 2 shapes that were congruent, whilst the others were kind of thinking about what it meant.
And finds out that one of her pupils is exceeding expectations.
But what I've seen from this is actually that he's tipping into the above expectation.